Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. We rolling? So, some people, I don't lie, I don't steal, blah, blah, blah. Oh, why don't you lie? Why don't you steal? Because my dad kicked the shit out of me so many times. He knew how to hit me so he didn't leave bruises on my face or when I went to school. And after we show this little short clip of this real life happened yesterday apparently, and where else? Chicago. I'm going to tell you how he responded to me, and I happened to be stupid enough, self-sabotaging enough to steal while I was with my father. I wanted to get caught. And by God, he caught me. And when you see this, this is nothing compared to how he beat me. This is going viral on YouFuck. Chicago, land of the free and thieves. Okay? This father apparently caught his two sons stealing. And this is what he did to them. In public, with a lot of witnesses. Roll them! Hit that fucking kid! Oh! Beat him! Pummel him! Bloody him! That's how they handle kids when I'm growing up. And this is nothing. Nothing compared to what my father and my father's generation, how they used to beat the kids. Now he'll be lucky not to go to jail. There are some people in this room that have never been screamed at growing up. There's some people in this room that have never been disciplined. Physically in this room growing up. There are people in this room that have never been in a schoolyard fight. I can't imagine that. How you can go through school and not get in a fight with somebody one time. But there are people in this room. And multiply this times 1,000,000 when you count the you two fuckers. And you wonder why I call you snowflakes. Because you melt under pressure. The world is fucked. They used to say when I was growing up, spare the rod and spoil the child. You understand that, meathead? Spare the rod. Don't beat the fucking kid, and he turns out to be a piece of shit as an adult. There used to be a saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Now it's just the opposite. People commit suicide on Facebook because they got unliked or whatever the terminology is, which is hilarious to me. It's not hilarious to the kids that commit suicide. If my kid committed suicide because somebody was bullying him on there, I would kill the entire fucking family. Every motherfucker, I would make sure that DNA never got any farther than that. And I'd gladly go to jail. When I say we're fucked up, we're fucked up. Speaking of fucked up, I got this War and Peace email today. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. From one of you, I don't mean literally one of you, but one of my devotees, crying about how two of my mentees stole all his money. I get these all the time. This is no sadder or less sad or more sad than most of them I get. Because the people are so desperate, and all my shit's free on the fucking net. Why? Because they think there's a secret sauce. They think there's a tip to success. Nobody wants to hear 2,000 cold calls. Because then what are you? You're just a dirtbag fucking salesman. A shitbag salesman. A shitbag Malcolm X salesman. Why are they, and of course then there was a thing last night before I went to bed, old people getting ripped off. Well, old people have been getting ripped off since Moses, I think. But old people and how some slick fucker like you comes around and promises them some shit. Why are these people so vulnerable to getting ripped off? Why? Because they think there's an easy way. Nobody puts up 10, 20, 40 grand to a charlatan on the phone that says he can double or triple or quadruple or, 10 times your money. It has more than 50 IQ. Where I came from, of course, they had no money. You couldn't get 10 grand out of the whole neighborhood. But they would just know it was a fraud. By definition, it was a fraud. And yet, two of my mentees ripped him off for 83 grand. Now, he's not writing me because he blames me. But why is he writing me? Am I going to do something about it? No. Now, I have done something about a girl a few years, if she's dead now, had spinal bifida, I think it's called, where your spine doesn't seal up and, your spine is out, something like that. And Kat, we tracked her down, right, Kat? And the doctor talked to the doctor, the surgeon, and found out it was for real. That took time, and we got her special chair, and then she died. So occasionally, but you got to be born without a head, your spine out like spinal bifida or something before I react. Because where the heart is supposed to be here is hardened. Because remember, I've got 3 million pores and I've been fucked in every one of them twice. But there's a reason why the poor stay poor. I believe with all my heart because they've got poor DNA. Remember, poorness rubs off. Many of you in this room come from poor DNA. I'm not talking about the physical attributes, which there aren't too many in this fucking room, that's for sure. But I'm talking about the attitude. My relatives in East LA are still working stiffs, they used to call them, or blue-collar workers, for the most part. And I was the first one on my mother's side to ever go to university, and that's why I went back and I graduated. I pleased, one of the only things I ever did to please anybody, I pleased my mom to go back to, I really went back to school to get laid. Because if you could fucking get laid in the 60s and you were in school, it's because you didn't have a dick. Pre-AIDS, women going braless, women's liberation starting. Oh God, it was a thing of fucking beauty. One notch after another. I got belts I can't wear because I'm afraid if I pull them too tight, they'll split from the notches I've got in them. And you can't get your dicks wet. Why are they so susceptible? Somebody say, why are they so susceptible? Why is it so easy to take money from the poor? And they don't have any money. Why? Low self-esteem, even lower than yours. And that's saying something. Less self-confidence than you, and that's saying something. So there are people that are more fucked up than you, but you got to hunt them down. And now the internet makes it easy to hunt them down. Trolling, is that the right word, trolling? They troll on the internet? Yeah, they troll. The world is fucked, and it's perfect for us. God, Buddha, Allah, whoever the fuck, a higher power, He sent us. There's a slide that I think I skipped where there is a wolf in a group of sheep. But I'm not showing you how to take from the poor. But it's perfect for us. I can't, every time I get emails every day, and some days I don't have time to read them because I'm with you all day. How am I so fucking lucky to still be alive and still be active and have energy for the last run at this? There was a great movie 30, 40 years ago called Sandpiper with Richard Crenna and a couple of famous actors. And it was about the American military going into China to pull out civilians from China. And the captain of the ship, Richard, we're going to have one more slice at the underbelly of China. Well, we've got one more slice at the underbelly of humanity. There's no law in the 10 commandments, if you believe in that stuff. There wasn't an 11th commandment. We can't get rich in times of chaos. There's no place in the fucking Holy Scriptures that I know of. But I want you to get stinking rich. So rich when you walk down the street, they point at you. Oh, fuck. That's so-and-so. But it's hard because you've got poor DNA. And for the most part, your parents fucked up. I talked to some more March people. Again, when the police broke us up in March, I said, I'm going to give you this, but I know I shouldn't. My instincts, everything in my body, 74-year-old body at that time, tells me not to give you this fucking material because you're going to fuck it up because you'd fuck up a wet dream. Only one person that so far, this is the fourth Corona seminar, didn't do anything with the material I gave him in March. Only one person so far. Only one did exactly what I told him. Study this, understand it, but don't do anything. Because you're going to fuck it up. Because if you put the material without all the sidebar shit that we do up here, you're invariably going to fuck it up. And only one. Every single person of those 22 people, except one, fucked it up. And when I tell them now, you got to get rid of the boards. You're fucked. You can't go back. There's only one time to make a first impression, remember? Well, can I keep this guy? And as soon as you start explaining to me, but, when there's a but in the sentence, it's, but I fucked up, boss. I couldn't help myself. You're right. I'm just a poor swine with a 2-centimeter dick. I can't help myself. You don't say that part. But you do say but. Because you're trying to explain to me why your situation was different. In 27 and a half years, there are no different situations. I've heard it all. I've heard all the excuses. All the excuses. Again, why? Why do they reach out? I can almost understand why an old person, 70 or 80 years old, the kids don't want to see him, or her husband died, or wife died, and they're lonely. I don't understand the lonely part because I've never been lonely. But I can see, they could be easily taken down by a slick, I haven't produced any slick fucking people in this seminar in a long time, but slick enough to take an old 80-year-old, half-dementiated person money away. But why young, vibrant person like the guy that wrote me this email would fall susceptible to a get-rich-quick scheme? There are no get-rich-quick schemes. Remember I told you, or I'm about to tell you, 95% of all the businesses go for sale in the world, worldwide, for the last 20, 25 years, don't sell the first year because they're asking way too much money. Like in Tel Aviv and Turkey and all these places I make fun of, they're trying to get rich off one transaction. Wealth is built off a series of transactions. Warren Buffett got rich off of thousands of transactions, not one. And because you fucked up for 20, 25 years, you're trying to sell, or the person that's trying to sell to you, and that's why 95% of the businesses don't sell. Because there is no get-rich-quick scheme. And then when a Bitcoin comes along, and that wasn't get-rich-quick, but it was over 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then when it's the top of the market, and somebody of note, like myself, tells you, sell half, keep half, you keep it all, and now you got nothing. Well, not nothing, but you don't have, as I told you, 2 brothers, 1.8 billion each. Now, that's a lot of fucking money. You say Bitcoin around them, they turn white. They turn as white as this shirt color. They can't stand to hear the name Bitcoin. They could have sold 300 or 400 million worth of it. They could have sold 30, 40, 50 million worth of it. But they kept it all. all the way down. I'm happy they lost all their money. It makes for a great story. But I have 1,000 stories just like that. There was a series on TV a number of years ago about New York City, and it's 8 million people here and 8 million stories. Well, I've got a different story for, virtually everybody that's come to the seminar. It's just unfucking believable to me. But that's how, because pleasers want to be wanted. That's the answer that none of you gave me. They want to be wanted. Why? I don't know. That part of growing up passed me. I just didn't want to get beat. I hope this guy doesn't go to jail. I may put up the money for him to his defense. Those kids are never going to forget that. What should the father have done? Just let him steal and, good boy, how much did you get for me? What is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to go, bad, bad, bad? I remember that particular beating I got from my dad like it was this morning when I brushed my teeth. Last night you saw my fave, Nick, correct? Now you're not even going to come up with it, so I'm going to tell you, because I'm tired of your stupidity. He doesn't know how to play tennis. Did everybody get that? He never played tennis. And what is he? The greatest tennis coach that ever fucking lived. And he can't play the fucking game. But you want to know the why. Even after me saying this and ranting and raving like a maniac, you still want to know the fucking why. Because you can't help it. The loser DNA in you can't shake. Comments about Nick. Yes, sir.
He was selfish?
Duh! A real genius here. From Anaheim, California. Adelaide is the first anus of the world. Anaheim is the second. They both start with A. What else? Yes, sir.
He used vindication as a great source of motivation whenever trying to get things done. That was his personal fuel, even coming back after using Boris Becker to beat Agassi up.
Yeah, it's a mental game, and then he got, I understand that. What else about, yes, sir.
Nick wasn't concerned about mistakes because he knew that as long as the ship didn't sink, they could still recover, so he wasn't worried that it was an end or all situation.
We had a kid here about a year and a half ago who went through that camp. He was a gifted athlete as a child. As soon as I started talking about it, he was like sitting in the back. He was crying quietly through the whole thing. He couldn't wait for us to stop talking about it at school and Nick. Because he lived that for 5 or 6 years. He was one of the ones that was trying to get Nick's attention. And he said, it was much worse to be there. He says, the film didn't do any real justice to show the pain that Nick put the kids through. He didn't say it scarred me for life, but it scarred him for life. But for the ones that are successful, scar tissue is good. Because it toughens you up. Like Sally says, I'm rhino skin. What else about Nick? Yes, sir.
Boris told he was more a life coach than a tennis coach, but he will cut you if you don't.
No, I don't well, he would cut you. That's true, but I don't think he was a life coach. I could give a week-long seminar about life coaches, and what a waste of time. Okay? But I have a saying, and I believe it. Everybody has the right to make a living. Put food on the table, in my opinion. As long as they're not hurting somebody else. I didn't say stealing. I said hurting. Because somebody can steal money from you, like this kid. And if he grows and prospers from the experience, but some people are hurt permanently. And life coaches hurt people permanently, in this man's opinion. Because they give you a false sense of hope. There is no fucking hope. I've said since mid-March, we are approaching Corona with a Pollyanna attitude. Pollyanna, and I described it yesterday, the day before, is everything's burning around us, collapsing, and it's going to be in the springtime, the flowers are coming out again, yada, yada, And it's not. What else about, yes, sir?
Nick knew how to motivate his students, and his passion was to see their achieve their challenge. And he knew that if he was training very hard, they would be successful. Some of them would be successful.
Well, no, he knew the kids with talent. The key in that business, not dissimilar to the key in this business, is to be able to see talent early in their career and get them focused early on. There are very, very few world-class athletes that I've ever heard about that all of a sudden they're 25 years old and they became world-class and they became dedicated to their sport. Bullshit. They get them young. The world-class skier formerly, Marcus Bauer, was, skiing since he's 3 or 4. Didn't go to school like most kids because he was being trained to be on the Austrian ski team. And they get these kids young. When they get them between, not 0, but like 3 and 8, 5 and 8. And when his self-esteem built, the first 7 or 8 years of life. If somebody had coached you since you're 5 years old, you're a winner. The glass is half full and not half empty. And all the metaphors that I've used so far, you'd be a different person. Barron Trump. Barron Trump is such a person. Donald Trump is such a person. The Kennedys, the Clintons, and these dynasty families in politics in America are raised from the beginning. That's why it's such a miraculous miracle that Obama became president, because he certainly wasn't raised that way in any way, shape, manner, or form. And that's why I take my hat off to him vis-a-vis when we talk about goals and affirmation. Motherfucker, that's a big leap. And then he made it happen. It's one thing to flap your lips. We've got a lot of lip flappers that come through here. And that's all they did is flap lips. They added to the air conditioning. We need them now because they can circulate the air more because of Corona. Yeah, we could have them all. I could ring the room with them all. And then we could turn down a notch the air conditioning because they're just flap. But hot air is coming out of their lips. So it probably wouldn't do much good. What else about Nick? Yes, sir.
Sustained pressure and stress over a period of time is good. It helps to keep people motivated and accountable.
There's a slide coming up. I may have already skipped it. When Dr. Oppenheimer, the father of the nuclear bomb, was asked, how would you do it again? Because not dissimilar, they're trying to follow a similar model to find a cure for Corona as they did, not for the other past diseases, because the other past diseases took years to get vaccines, etc. But they came up with an atomic bomb in about 20 months. And he says controlled stress. Dr. Oppenheimer said, I would put an environment of controlled stress and keep the pressure on. But you don't like stress. You don't like confrontation. You do almost anything you can, whereas I have always looked for confrontation. when I went back to university after I had flunked out 3 times and spent 4 years in the military, and I came back, I used to challenge my professors. And I had one professor, Dr. Raby was his name, Rabbit Raby, I called him. He made me his graduate assistant, even though I wasn't in graduate school yet. And so I used to teach some of his labs, and he was the only guy that took my challenge positively. Well, we can make use of you. I can teach less lab classes as opposed to the lectures. You teach them. Just stay 1 or 2 chapters, preferably 2 chapters ahead, and you're going to be a great college professor. I didn't believe that until I was only 3 or 4 years older than the students. This is easy peasy. And then I found out how much money college professors made. I said, Dr. Raby, what are you, nuts? But he had been executive VP, the number 3 guy at United States Steel moons ago, got a PhD at Stanford, and retired with, $8 or $10 or $12 million at that time for his retirement plan. And he wanted to go back and teach. And if I remember correctly, his granddaughter or daughter lived near CSUN. So he took a college position there, and he ultimately became chairman. Stress. So the very thing that everybody in this room just about tries to stay away from is what has built, the world. What else about Nick? Yes, sir.
2 things. So I noticed that his responses to all the questions were that of a prepped witness.
Yep.
It was always in a good light, even if it was something negative.
Well, we're going to teach you. I said the first day, you listen to politicians. Politicians have 4 bullet points. No matter what you ask them, they've only got 4 answers, 1 of 4 answers. You're going to have 8 or 9 answers. No matter what the fucking question is, you're going to give them 1 of those 8 or 9 answers. Doesn't matter if it makes sense. That's it. That's why you don't need to know the why. For some of you in the room, you're going to find out the why, in spite of what Dan says, in spite of what all the kids so far that you've listened to, in spite of all you're going to hear the next few days from the other superstars, you're going to still want to know why. Because you don't really think that you deserve to be wealthy. And even though I'm trying to show you the shortest way from A to B, B being, some people call it financial freedom, I don't, generational wealth, you're going to still, because you can't help yourself. And just like I tell you, don't share any QLA with your significant others or your family, you're going to do that. A couple of you that I've talked to in one-on-one time already have said the biggest challenge you have is when you go back to the real world, your families. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But the question is, are you going to let your family keep you from your goal? Do you want generational wealth? Bad enough. That's, pay price to action. What are you willing to pay? Emotionally. Not financially, but emotionally. How much stress are you willing to put yourself under? And my experience is not too much. And my experience is, in the last 10 years, the kids, you, are willing to put yourself under a lot less stress than the guys in the 90s and the early 2000s. Because we've got a whole generation that grew up that are cunts. If you're a coder, a programmer, after I gave you the example of coding yesterday, how much stress can there be in life? When they come back and they tell me how much time they need to build the websites, blah, 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 and they say 9 weeks, I said, you got 9 days or you're fired. So they do 1 or 2 things. Either they do it in 9 days or they use the 9 days to look for a job and then they walk out on the 9th day. When America, the Obamacare website, it didn't work in the beginning, and they spent something like several $100 million for. And then they outsourced it to 3 or 4 Canadian firms. American firms didn't even do it, and it didn't work. And it took, a year or a year and a half. I know guys, you see, we could have done the whole Obamacare website in 30 days for $10 million. Siemens, when they did their big website many, many years ago, they spent about €1 million on their website. It had over 1 million items on the website. Didn't work either. You have to have a PhD and have Einstein's blood in you to make the fucking website work. They're all full of shit. Every one of them is full of shit. But they cloak themselves in this mystique. And I got a kid who learned how to code in 72 hours and got a job at Google. Apple, not Google, thank you for correcting me. Apple. And there's a few coders in the room. You know you're full of shit. What's worse is you're full of shit and poor. I would rather be full of shit and rich. Call me anything, just give me the fucking money. What else about Nick? In the back.
Doesn't think about the stuff he does. He just do the things, and he doesn't remember his 9 wives.
Well, that's great. Why would you want to remember your ex-wives' names? Just think about it. Ex means past, right? I talked to him on the phone a couple of times a few years ago. I was trying to get him here, or I was going to do something with him at the U.S. Open, tennis U.S. Open, and he's a cantankerous old bastard. He doesn't give a shit, but he's never gave a shit since he was young. But the whole gist of his career is he doesn't know how to play tennis. He's never played tennis. He's not going to learn how to play tennis in his late 80s. And everybody in this room is the antithesis of that. And he certainly doesn't give a shit. And he would rather be effective than liked. It's a whole seminar. We can just show that film until you get your fat asses out of here. But because of your backgrounds, you naturally want to make it more confusing and harder. Because if you don't make it harder, then what have you been doing the last 5, 10, 15, 25 years? If it wasn't really hard to do this, create wealth, what the fuck have you been doing? If it's this easy, what does that say about you? And we don't even ask the excuses. I did the best I knew how, my parents, well, that doesn't make any difference. We've got guys that are billionaires that the parents lived their whole life on the dole or on relief or on government money. There was a movie called Network about 30, 40 years ago, and the guy that won an Academy Award, he died shortly after, actually died before he got the Academy Award. He said, "I'm fed up, I can't take it anymore." And everybody in the windows got to the windows and yelling, "I can't take it anymore, I'm fed up." You're not, this is your first step to the next part of your life, because you were fed up. And many of you came here vis-a-vis Corona lockdown restrictions, and our future sales have gone up since lockdown. Combination of me saying this is our time, and you realizing that most of you are in the buggy whip businesses or the Smith Corona typewriter businesses or whatever that aren't going to be anymore. You go down the high street, or the main street, I guess they call it in America, and a lot of those buildings, or not buildings, but a lot of those businesses aren't going to reopen. And some of you are either directly or indirectly related to those businesses. To keep talent, the big companies, Fortune 500s, if you're at a certain management level, give you the choice. You can come back to work or not come back to work in the office, and you can move any place you want and work remotely. any place you want. A Chicago-based business, you can move to fucking Panama. That's not for the beginners, but for the senior talent, they don't want to lose them. I believe that the corona lockdown is going to increase entrepreneurism and people going out on their own by 1,000%. Because you can work remotely and still make your 100, 150 grand or 200 grand whenever you get paid from the big company, as you've seen, and start a business, not necessarily a QLA type model, and do both. It's estimated that we're losing $25 billion a day in America because of the lockdown. I say we're losing 5 or 10 billion more a day because of the lack of productivity from you working at home. Because if you think that you're as productive working at home, if you can tell yourself that lie, the efficiency of business is gone. Now, in the tech, we've developed tech stuff that would take us 5 or 10 years in 5 months. It shows you how fast we can work. But everything in business, even though we're trying to make everything tech, isn't tech. And for the non-tech, they've got a great commercial, British Telecom, where a woman, an Asian woman, is working on it. She's doing we can work harder. And then her cat walks across her keyboard. And you see the screen go, eh! And so I don't know how much of that got all fucked up. But she said, well, I could almost be more, I could almost always be more productive. And then when the screen goes back, and then she's almost always. Well, that's just one disruption. They show another guy's sitting there in front of doing a Skype, and his little 3-year-old kid is pulling on his socks, and his fucking other daughter is pulling. How? And because you want to be like, you're not going to, get away from me, little shit. You're not going to do that. Did you see the look on Anelli's son when he told the kid, sit down? And he came up behind Anelli and he leaned up on his back like this. That's very primal. They know who the head, leader of the pack is in that household. If that would have been me as a kid, you know the TV shows, The Flash, I would have been sitting on my ass in that chair in less than 100th of a second. Because the next move my dad would have made would have been up out of that chair. And God Almighty, I never wanted to see him get out of his chair. Never. Because I knew what the third act was. Bam! YouTube, goodbye.